Welcome to episode 239 of Freshly Grounded. Guys, this episode has been, I know I say this all the time, it's literally one of my favorite episodes. It's amazing. We interviewed Jamil Qureshi. Those of you who follow me on Twitter know that for a while I've been wanting to interview him, and I've kind of mentioned that I'm looking to interview this high performance coach and psychologist. So Jamil Qureshi is a high performance coach and psychologist, but it's more than that, and he's more than that. Not only is he a high performance coach, which could give the connotation of, oh no, is this like a motivational speaker? This guy he coaches some of the world's number one athletes, businesses, and is athletes and businesses, and is so amazing at what he does. He even mentioned on today's podcast that 5 of the athletes that he coaches have become the number one in the world, and he's coached the England international cricket team and so many other teams, and it's just been phenomenal to dig into his mind. I know that trying to get time with Jamil is almost impossible, and yet we managed to get him for this podcast, and so I'm so grateful. But to give you guys the intro that I mentioned on the podcast, Jamil Qureshi is a high performance coach and psychologist of some of the top athletes in the world, as well as businesses and also smaller teams. Jamil says that everyone can perform better. You just need to cultivate a mindset for success. To behave differently, we need to think differently. And so that's what this episode is about. If you're a human being of any sort, you will definitely get some benefit from this episode, and I really encourage you to both listen to this episode but also share it, guys. I never mention these things like, guys, share, subscribe, like, and I don't mention these things because I just want to put our content out and just let it, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. If you don't, you don't. And also because I forget. But this time I'm looking the camera in the eyes and I'm saying, please do share this episode to anyone you think will benefit. Share it on WhatsApp. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can, because it actually makes a massive difference. In subscribing to our YouTube channel, it helps us grow. It helps businesses, potential partners see us, and then allows us to get more amazing guests, better guests. If we want to grow, basically, we want to interview some of the best and kind of high performing athletes and people in the world and understand their mindset and get more value from these podcasts, then we need to be hitting that subscribe button, and we need as much support from you guys as possible. And also, if you enjoy what we do and you want to go that deeper level, then you can subscribe to us on Patreon. So it's patreon.com, patreon.com/freshly grounded. And for £5 a month, where possible, you get the episodes early. So today's one wouldn't have been early because we shot it today. But anytime we shot an episode in advance, which is usually the case, you get the episode early, and a few other perks. But more than anything, you'll be supporting Freshly Grounded. So please do consider that. Every Patreon, it really makes a big difference. And maybe you're sitting there now thinking, oh man, I hear him speak about Patreon all the time. But it helps. So please do consider joining us on Patreon. And without any further ado, this is episode 239 of Freshly Grounded with Jamil Qureshi. Enjoy!
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast.
Well, it's not exactly brand new anymore, is it?
Welcome to Freshly Grounded, the podcast.
That's better.
Created by best friends Faisal and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded.
After that bit.
Created by
After that bit.
best friends Faisal and Sam.
Really?
Jamil Qureshi is a performance coach and psychologist of some of the top athletes in the world, as well as businesses and smaller teams. Jamil says that everyone can perform better. You just need to be able to cultivate a mindset for success. To behave differently, we need to think differently. And as you guys know, I'm so excited. I've been so excited to have Jamil on the podcast. I cannot wait to have a conversation with him. Jamil, welcome to Freshly Grounded. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Faisal. Well, thank you for inviting me. I know we've been trying to get together for a little while, so I'm pleased that we could.
As am I. I have so many questions. And normally we don't script these podcasts at all, but I had so many in my mind. I just had to start writing some down in note form. So I'm probably just going to be firing questions at you today. I'm sure many people do that, but I'll try my best to keep it civilized and relaxed at the same time. Okay. I'm going to get started with one topic that I wanted to talk about at some point in the episode. And I thought, well, let's get it out of the way early so then we can kind of have more of a general discussion. And of course, I feel like I have a performance coach in front of me and we can't not speak about what's been going on with the England team and all of that kind of saga. I'm sure you've kind of like spoken to a few people about it this week. But look, massive pressure, 19-year-olds, 20-year-old, I think Marcus Rashford maybe 23-year-old, the whole country watching, millions of people, huge pressure. And then obviously they go ahead and miss their penalties. And then the what happened after that, first of all, kind of like just being subject to the racial abuse, but even kind of before the racial abuse and the backlash that took place, just being in a situation where you got almost like the weight of an entire country, the prime minister's like there watching, like the royal family there watching. How do you begin to work with a client that's gone through that like level of pressure in its initial days, and then the kind of outcry that happened after and the racial abuse and stuff that happened after?
Okay, well, you started with a big question, haven't you? I think
it'll be easy from here.
Let's have a look at the detail. Let's have a look at the first things. Let's have a look at the individuals. I think that consistency of mind gives you consistency of play. So it's really important as a high performer, be it in business or in sport, to have a consistency of mind. So these people are well practiced in this. You've got to remember that pressure is all relative. So they've grown into this position. They didn't just turn up and play in the Euros, but even when they were playing in their, home counties championship, whatever it was that they played when they were very young, there would have been immense pressure on them to perform because these games were important then. So they've grown into the idea of becoming a Premiership footballer and international footballer. So they're used to pressure and they deal with it. And don't get me wrong, it means it can go wrong from time to time. But the key with all of this is to try and focus upon the execution of the task, not on the outcome. So whether you're a golfer with this winning putt, whether you're taking a penalty, whether you are an important pitch or presentation for your business, focus on the task, the execution. Don't worry about what it means. Once we get the emotional connectivity with the outcome, what it means to succeed or fail at this, then it starts to compromise our ability. So focus on the task and go for replication. And this is what many sports people do. They look at replication, be it with a golf swing or be it with a penalty technique, is how reliable is it? How much can I know that I can do something and it will result in something else? So let's try and look at the precursor to all our actions, which is our thoughts. Gain a consistency in our mind, consistency in our practice to allow us to replicate well mechanically the task. And then let's try not to think about what it means, but think about the completion and execution of that one thing. In regard to the bigger question, what we've seen afterwards, I don't necessarily believe that racism is about football. I don't think it's about Facebook or Twitter either. I think racism is about society and people. So I think that, it's a little bit like putty. If you squeeze it, it will come out in another area. Let's ban all the racist comments from Facebook. And I don't really see the point, to be honest, because they'll still be in the pub. Or they'll still be on some other medium or channel or platform or in the community. And eradication is the key. And part of that is education. A good part of that is education. So, if we can celebrate our diversity and if we can tell better stories and narratives to allow people better understanding of how we are better together, what we've created as a country and through diversity of people and opinion and thought, maybe we've got a chance of bringing it back from the divisiveness that we've seen, particularly since 2016. In regard to sort of professional sport, it's really, and coming back to your original question, Faisal, at the end of the day, if you look at that macro environment that the players work in, and then you look at the micro environment, the context of the game, these guys are at the top of the tree. So I don't know how many people play football in England. I wonder how many people play football in England. 5-a-side, in a pub team, the lower leagues. I don't know, maybe 10, 15 million people. So if you went to watch 15 million people play football, you would have chosen that 11. as the top 11 in the country. When these players have that perspective and know how good they are, then maybe it will also carry them through, not just in that particular tournament or match, but into the next one and the rest of their career too. So realising their own worth and value, and it's not necessarily determined on the strength of one penalty.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Do you think so? We saw like after all of the backlash, that all three of them kind of mentioned that they took time out of social media just to kind of be with their families, be away from seeing any of that stuff. How important is that? It's just like when something's at the peak of or that level of kind of criticism, or not even criticism, just abuse, to actually just leave that environment completely and block it off.
Yeah, I think it is important. We all get immersed in something, and that's part of the problem. We need to create time and space to see things clearly. Now, I know that you're a new dad, Faisal, so everything is about the children, and you become immersed in anything to do with children, and it's so hard to stand back, create a perspective, and think about, what do I need to do to allow this situation to be at its best? And so taking time out is really important. It's a really weird thing that, the more, and particularly I'll tell you where I see it at the moment is everyone working remotely. Everyone's working really long hours. They're really immersed in the work and really thinking about what they're trying to get done, and how much time they've got to do it in. And I think that the paradox is to take more time out allows you to get more done. It almost sounds counterintuitive, but the creation of time and space is a really important point in high performance. The highest performers that I've ever worked with, astronauts, Formula One drivers, Premiership footballers, fighter pilots, these medical teams, people who perform these operations over 8 hours. The highest performers I've ever worked with all take really long breaks. They build a recovery into their schedule. So part of their high performance schedule is more recovery, is to put more time out so they can perform at intense levels. But, us as business people, we think to be better, to perform more, so put in more hours, be more efficient, try and get more done in less time. But actually the route to high performance is to take time out, create some time and space, create better levels of self-awareness and better levels of personal introspection to allow us to think about what we're doing in a new and different way. And creating new perspectives will always create new possibilities and new opportunities. So I welcome anyone, be it the footballers or be it the entrepreneurs, to take more time out, remove ourselves from certain situations which allow us to be stimulated and provoked in a different manner, or rested in a different manner, and then come back into it with a fresh pair of eyes.
I'm going to jump and hop between topics if that's okay with you. So it'll be perhaps slightly more Q&A based than our general podcast, which seems to flow in conversation. And I'm just doing that as a fast track method, I suppose, to get to squeeze everything out I can. So I apologize. I listened to your podcast with Steve. Amazing podcast. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for that. You mentioned in the podcast that at the time when you were traveling kind of 4 or 5 times a week delivering talks for larger teams, you would often look at the feedback and there was a kind of a rating system, and the majority of it was great. People were very satisfied and they loved what you delivered, but you would look for kind of the lower ratings to understand what it is that you could change. And that got me thinking about myself and criticism and how I deal with criticism, and I don't enjoy it. It stings. And now I'm not talking about criticism like we spoke about in the last question, which is just abuse, but criticism that's actually probably deserved. How does a person become comfortable with criticism, especially when you're passionate about what you do? And so when you get criticism about it, it really, really stings. How do you become comfortable with that?
God, it's a good question, that, isn't it? Don't get me wrong. It always stings. So I guess the key is not to stop it from stinging. The key is to use it wisely. So, for betterment. So it doesn't mean that we need to stop it from hurting. It means that we need to get something from it. So we can endure anything as long as there's a purpose. We can, as human beings, and we're pretty resilient. We're good at dealing with change, disruption, uncertainty, unpredictability, complexity. as long as we know or think, we might get something from it in the end. And I think that let's take that, in the example that you give, that, if better never stops, so being better is a game of continual adjustment. What we need to do is to take anything as feedback. So if you sat opposite someone and you were pitching your new business idea, and someone was shaking their head, smirking, going, no. You can either get really defensive or really aggressive, and you can take, heart this criticism which is overt, or you can see it as telling you something. And I think that to some of the most successful people I've ever worked with, obstacles don't obstruct, they instruct. They tell you there's another way of doing it. So whatever rejection you get and however you get it, and whatever criticism you get and however you get it, it's not there as a barrier to performance. It's not there to inhibit you. It's actually there to tell you something. It's actually there to give you better guidance. So I think reframing it actually is a really useful way of thinking about things. That anything and everything is an opportunity to be better. So success and failure are merely outcomes. They shouldn't become attitudes. You can make a mistake. It doesn't make you a mistake. You can fail. It doesn't make you a failure. You can be criticized. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. These are people's opinions, and they say something about, what we're doing and how we're doing it, which may give us additional guidance. So I wouldn't worry about taking it to heart. We all do when we're doing something that we're passionate about. I know you're passionate about your podcast and the quality of what you want to provide for the people who interact with you, and come here for good content and the experience. And I'm the same. I always want to do a great job, and if there's criticism of it, I'm trying to think that how's that going to enable me to do it better. And I think it's just practice as much as anything else, in reframing it to allow us to get the learning from it. So, I think that our only sustainable competitive advantage is to learn faster and better than your competitors. Now, that goes for me as a psychologist. It goes for you in regard to your podcast. The only way in which your only sustainable competitive advantage is to learn faster and better than Stephen Bartlett and anyone else who's doing it. And we can't do that, unless we put ourselves out there and receive feedback. And that feedback may be good, it may be bad, but it will always be useful.
Can a person grow in their mindset and cultivate their mindset if they are not fully self-aware of themselves, of their traits and of their weaknesses? A lot of us seem to be in denial about perhaps our biggest weaknesses, or some of us. How much of a blockade is that from growing? Do you have to understand yourself first before you can even begin to think about how you can then grow yourself?
There's so many people trying to change, but I don't know who they are at the moment. So I don't know why they're busy bothering changing. So I do think that the best way to move forwards is to know which way you're facing. So I think self-awareness and personal introspection are key. And I don't think it needs to be in depth. We don't need to, think in any sort of high-powered way about deconstructing, where we came from as a child and what we thought when we were 5 and 6. I'm
so glad you've said that, because that's been on mine. That's actually my next question, but I'll let you continue.
No. But, it's never about, whether we fancied our teacher at school or at the first time that we went swimming and we didn't like it. People say to me that I'm no good at presenting because I remember being 8 and I forgot the lines in a school play. I've never been good at it. But your past doesn't equal your future unless you allow it to. So I wouldn't worry about it. It's more of a general perspective of what we like doing, what we're good at, where people see value in us, and just getting a perspective on those things. Now, here's the thing. The most successful people I've ever worked with, I've had the pleasure of working with 6 people who got to #1 in the world. And I promise you now that all of them had really good self-awareness and good personal introspection. But the key was that the thing that they worked on to enable them to be better was something that they were already good at. So I thought, I'm no good at this, and I'm pretty good at that. And instead of trying to fix the thing that they weren't good at, they spent all their time in the area that they were good at, trying to make it even better. So we think to be better as a business, as a team, as an individual, we need to fix our weaknesses. You say to someone, how can you be better? They say, well, do you know what? I need to get better at that. Or I've never been any good at this. I really need to improve it. I don't believe that's the way forward at all. I think it's about understanding our strengths and playing to them more, turning the volume up on them, being a bit more consistent with them. And all these people who got the number one in the world, no one ever said to me, I'm going to make a sea change. I'm going to do something dramatic. I'm going to really try and improve this area. And they only ever said, I seem to be getting some results with this, so I'm going to do it a bit more. Or, this is really working for me. I'm going to be a bit more consistent with it. And I've actually worked with teams before. And Faisal, I promise you this is true in business and in sport. I've actually worked with teams before who have actually weakened a strength by trying to strengthen a weakness. Think about it. Ludicrous, isn't it? I'm actually trying to weaken the strength by trying to strengthen a weakness. So let's find out a little bit more about ourselves. Let's understand where our key strengths are. And let's try and do a bit more with them. And see what it results in. And get some feedback. So I think that self-awareness is good. It doesn't need to be in-depth and high-powered, and it needs to be around our strengths much more so than our weaknesses anyway.
That's amazing. It's interesting to think in that way, because it for some reason doesn't seem to be the default. The default seems to be if I have a weakness, I need to fix that before I can move forward.
Yeah. But you know what? I'll tell you the other thing on this is that the problem that you've got, and you're absolutely right, it's what people do. The problem you've got is that sometimes it's not possible to fix our weaknesses. And so you just end up, working really hard at something which you never really make much change in anyway. And then the other thing is that what happens when you think about your weaknesses? You usually feel pretty crap about them. And let me make a list of all the things that I don't do and I'm rubbish at. And it doesn't make me feel particularly good. And it's also a pretty long list, Faisal, as well. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Really focus upon the one or two things I can do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad, Jamil, that you mentioned the whole childhood thing, right? Because one of the traits that I'm very aware of myself is that I'm incredibly indecisive, and it's less with the macro decisions and more so with the micro decisions. The example I often give people is I can go to a Nando's and I'm at the till and I'm going, I'll have half a chicken with peri fries, right? And then I'm like, actually no, I'll have spicy rice. And I'm like, no, actually I'll have chips. And it's such a micro decision, but for some reason I think, oh well, if I'm going for the chips, I'm missing out on the rice, and so on and so forth. And I've spoken to just people around me, friends. It's never got to the point where it's been a crippling issue for me. But when I do speak to people about it, I often get the response like, is it something from your childhood? Like, what is it that's made you worried about making a decision, and like what could happen if you didn't go with the other decision? And I'm constantly saying it's not. There's nothing I can. There's nothing to do with. I can't think of anything in my childhood. I refuse to even go down that road because I really strongly believe that there's no solution there. And in fact, the most productive conversation I had about that was actually with my older brother, who said. He said, do you know what, Faisal? My older brother is someone who I would consider to be incredibly decisive. I've never seen him struggle with these kind of small decisions. And he sat me down once and I was speaking to him about it. And he goes, I'm actually very indecisive myself, which again was shocking to me. And he said, but the thing I do is I just once I've made a decision, I tell myself, I've made it now and I have to deal with the consequences. And the consequences often are, next time I'll get rice rather than chips. And then I move on. And that actually had a major impact for me, because that was kind of a forward-thinking solution as opposed to retrospectively thinking, what happened in my childhood that's now not making me make decisions?
So in all the years I've been doing high-performance coaching, no one's ever asked me about whether they should have rice or whether the spicy rice or the chips. So how can I help you next time you're at Nando's? Let's have a think. I think two things. That one, actually three things for you. I'll give you three things. Is that one, all decisions are investment decisions. So all decisions are investment decisions. Every single time we make a decision, we invest something. So if you choose between a tea or a coffee, and you're investing in making or buying a tea or a coffee, and how much enjoyment you're going to have from it. So all the decisions you make in the course of a day, which are millions, whether I'm going to wear this baseball cap today, am I going to wear this t-shirt, what am I going to eat, what time am I going to get up, what time am I having breakfast, All decisions we make are investment decisions. And we invest in how happy or how sad things will make us. So you're thinking, I'm going to have the rice or I'm going to have chips. Which one is going to be more pleasurable? So I'm going to have to invest in this. I'm making a decision here, and the return is what I'm interested in. Now, second point for you is that your brother is right. I don't know why I'm not speaking to him. But,
exactly.
Your brother's right. That once you've made a decision, commitment is key. So some people will think, shall I go to university or shall I go and get a job? I don't know what to do. And they procrastinate because they think one decision is good and one decision is bad. But neither decision is good or bad. It is what you make it. So therefore, you can go to university and have a great career. But you can go and get a job and be totally fulfilled and have a great career. So the choice is not the issue. It's what you make of it. It's your commitment to it. Now, I would suggest that you probably like rice and chips equally. I'm not being rude when I say that. But you look a very fit man. I'm not saying, but you know, so it's not necessarily about, you know, one's going to be unpleasant and one's going to be good. And it's about they're both the same, and so therefore, where do I make the right decision? There isn't a right decision. Your brother's right. Commit to one, and then stay in the moment and enjoy it. So the other point, which is part two. Part 2B of this answer is that commitment is key, and being in the moment. That's the 2B of this, is being in the moment. So many of us, when we're on holiday, not that we've been on holiday for a while, but when we're on holiday, we'll be lying by the pool and be thinking about, where should I go tonight? Or breakfast was good this morning. But we should be enjoying lying by the pool. So we need to be more in the moment. So when you make the decision, you commit and you stay in the moment and you enjoy the decision that you've made. The third part to the answer is just get the chips and the rice and dip into both. Why not? It's the way forwards.
Yeah. Do you know what? I imagine that in all your life of being a high performance coach for number one athletes in the world, that deciding between chips and rice must be a real low point for you. I apologize. But you know what? I suppose I was just giving a silly example for a larger issue, and the advice that you gave is phenomenal, to be honest, because it does help you kind of structure the thoughts in your mind. And of course there are larger decisions that we can struggle with. That applies to really well. Okay, fine. I'll move. So I've ticked that box. Now I'll move on to another question now. So one of my favorite quotes is something like motivation doesn't last, but neither does a bath. That's why we advise it daily. I think it's a quote by Zig Ziglar, and I've always enjoyed that quote because I relate to it. I think like you do go through spikes of motivation, right? So my question on the back of that quote is, if there's a difference between motivation and actually cultivating a mindset over a lifetime, how does one make sure that they fall into the latter, or at least use the motivation to then drive themselves into the latter, which is actually creating habits for like a successful mind and a successful life?
Okay, that's a big question. Motivation does dip, and it does increase from time to time. I'm noticing it's really pronounced at the moment. The ups and downs that people are having. Because we're all working from home, and it's easy to be motivated when you're part of the team. So you go into the office, you've had a bad morning, people pick you up, you're fine. And you go into your home office, haven't had a bad morning, and you're on your own. So you'll be self-motivated. So it's much more pronounced ups and downs. It's estimated that for every 50 minutes you spend at a computer screen, you can lose up to 20% concentration. So lots of people spend lots of hours on computers, and motivation's up and down. So it's a question which is worth asking many times during the course of a day is, given how I'm feeling at the moment, what would be the next best thing to do? It's a really good question to ask yourself half a dozen times in a day. So given how I'm feeling at the moment, what would be the next best thing to do? And you think, well, yeah, I'm quite demotivated at the moment. What I'll do is I'll just do those easy emails. I'm really motivated. I think I'm going to be so motivated. Let me get on with that tricky proposal. I was going to save it for tomorrow. I'm going to do it now. So it's really nice it's no longer about time management. It's actually about energy management. So we need to deploy our energy, our resource and capability to the areas where we create most impact. So it's not really about what we're seeking to do. It's much more about what we're seeking to create, which is most important now. And so we want to direct our energy and motivation in the right areas. I always say that, first things first, second things never. If everything's important, nothing is. Let's focus on the stuff that really moves the dial, stuff which is really important. But in answer to the question in regard to lifelong motivation, where I see it is people who are purposeful. Now, let me explain very briefly that people got targets and objectives, and that's great. Targets and objectives will make you successful. Purpose is different. So purpose is a reason for being. Purpose is a reason to get out of bed in the morning. In my experience, you don't beat someone with purpose. And the mistake that people make with purpose is that they think that purpose is like this end destination. And this is why you get so many companies with these mission statements. And so many companies with mission statements, but so very few on a mission. They're not purposeful, they're not engaged and passionate. They're sort of values on a wall, that's what they are. But people who are incredibly purposeful find that purpose is never achieved; it's attained on a daily basis. That's a really important point, Faisal. But that people think purpose is this destination bit. That's what I'm getting to. Real purpose is never achieved; it's attained on a daily basis. This is why Richard Branson keeps working. It's why Tiger Woods keeps working. It's why Warren Buffett keeps working. It's because they are purposeful. So you can see where this lifelong motivation comes from when we are purposeful. And I say to companies quite a lot now that, purpose maximization will always drive profit maximization. We've got to become more purposeful as an organization, more purposeful as a leader, as a business owner, more purposeful as a person. We've just got to, try and find areas where, we feel fulfilled, on a daily basis, on a regular basis, and creates impact, not just for ourselves and others. And I think that when we lose ourselves to something which is bigger than us, that's when we feel like, we can do this on a daily basis. You're probably feeling it now as a new dad, that, you're constantly motivated to look after your children, to show them, a good time, to make them better when they're feeling sad. We tend to lose ourselves to something which is bigger than us, and that's us becoming purposeful.
Wow. I want to actually delve into children in a second, but before I do, I want to track back to something that you mentioned, which is seeing your obstacles as a kind of instruction. And it reminds me, of course, of the book The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. I'm not sure if you've seen it or read it. Amazing book, but the whole book is based on that concept that you just mentioned. So of course the title says it for itself. The obstacle is the way, and it's all about stoicism and many quotes from Marcus Aurelius and so on and so forth. And another book that Ryan Holiday has written is called Ego is the Enemy. And I think he actually wrote Ego is the Enemy first, but I read The Obstacle is the Way first. And so they are kind of similar. They kind of both talk about stoicism. But the point of Ego is the Enemy is about, crushing the ego and I suppose like arrogance and that kind of stuff. And I too have been really fortunate to interview some kind of Premiership footballers on this podcast and members of the England cricket team. And what I find from these high performing athletes is that they have every right to have ego. They have every right to be arrogant, and when they're on a pitch, they often can be. Like if you catch them in a post match interview, one of the guys that we interviewed most recently, Arnaut Danjuma, so he plays for Bournemouth. At the time we interviewed him, they were in the Premiership, and you'll see him on the podcast. Incredibly humble guy. You see the post match interview or after he's won man of the match, and he's like, well, finally, I've become man of the match. I've been deserving this for the last 5-6 games. And you're thinking, but he's in that moment, right? So it's like they know how to turn it on and turn it off. And so my point is through that book, Ego is the Enemy, it kind of triggered the thoughts of these interviews that I've had. And Moeen Ali, again, England cricketer. When I'm interviewing these guys, incredibly humble. You see zero ego in them and zero arrogance in them. How do you get that balance of understanding that you are great, yet being so humble, I guess.
Yeah.
And is it a balance that you need, or is it just in their personalities?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of both. I think I don't really know the answer to it, Faisal. I'm sorry but I think that one, I think that some people, characteristically, characteristically might just have that in them. But again, I think you also learn it. So I think that if you're part of a team and you realise that your success is dependent upon the success of others, then I think that you learn to temper your ego and let's call it that for the moment. It's really like a thermostat, which you turn on when you need to and turn down when you need to. And I think that success doesn't happen in isolation. So I've seen this with golfers and I've seen this with Formula One drivers. And people think that, they're alone. It's a lone sport. They're successful on their own. And they're not really. They play into big teams. Golfers play into teams. Formula One drivers play into teams. The guys that you mentioned in the Premiership, Moeen Ali plays in a team. And his success is dependent upon not just his own performance, which requires that level of confidence and belief, but then also to have the humility to play into a team and support colleagues and and his friends who are in the team. So I think that I think you just learn it. I think you do it and you learn it, and it's one of the things which allows you to be brilliant, because talent is not enough. So let's imagine that you had someone like Moeen Ali, incredibly talented. Does he get to play the international career that he's played and is enjoying if he wasn't a team player? And if his ego got in the way, and there are certain and cricket is one where I'm thinking of at the moment as an example of a cricketer in the England cricket team at who when I did a lot of work with the England cricketers 2009, and it was said that his ego got in the way. Star performer, great player, he'll win you some games, but he'll also lose you some. And the reason why he'll lose you some is because of the morale in the team, but because of the arguments that take place, the fractions, the way in which the team divides, and so I think that talent is great. And we all know 14, 15-year-olds are incredibly talented at, whatever sport. So one of the reasons why they don't make it is because they're not teachable. So they don't learn to use their talent properly. And the other reason is that they don't necessarily perform well in a team. And so therefore, or in the tournament or in the game, because there's something which goes on behind the eyes. And so their talent and technical ability won't take them to where they are. So I don't know the answer to it. I think that it is natural for some people, and I think for others, I think you just learn it, as you go along.
It leads me to thinking about a characteristic trait that I'd say I've probably even seen myself, which is I'm by no means obviously a psychologist, and I don't have the wealth of knowledge that you have, and so I'm going to be speaking as a complete layman here. But I feel like there's two types of people who wear their hearts on their sleeves and people who don't, if we look at things in that category. And I would consider myself probably somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve, and I've seen so many advantages and disadvantages to it. Advantages being that when I'm happy and I'm in an excited mood and I'm fun, then it can light up a room and everybody can have fun and it's great, and also you get great energy out and passion out of it. And then when I'm not in a good mood, it can almost suck the energy out of the whole room. And when I'm in that phase of things, I often have the thought, I think to myself, why can't I always be the other Faisal? Or what must people think of me when I'm like this? It must look really bad. And then it makes me think, well, I envy now the people who are neither ever too happy or neither too sad, or at least they don't display them. They have this stoic personality where it's in the middle of that bar. I don't know what my question is there, to be honest, but you speaking about this member of the England team who can sometimes win games and sometimes lose games, it reminded me of that trait.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think that for me, success is all about self-expression. That's what it's about. So being a good colleague, being a good leader, being a good entrepreneur, is not about seeking to impress. It's about seeking to express, to be ourselves in the context of the workplace. If you look at, we're talking about cricket. If you look at someone like Freddie Flintoff or Ian Botham, they played cricket like they had their Friday nights out. That's what they did. Steve Davis, the snooker player, would perform at the highest level, and he would play his sport like he would have his Friday nights out. And I think that, to bring our weekend self to work is really important. Lots of people don't, because they're not allowed to. It's a cultural thing. It's the environment in which we work. And if you think about the success that you're having, with your podcast and with what you do, it's because you're self-expressing. You've been yourself. No one's telling you how to behave today. Here's your leadership framework. Here's your values on a wall. This is what we expect of you if you want your bonus and commission. You're doing something you enjoy. You're being purposeful and you're being you. And I think that, don't be jealous of those people in the middle who feel no happiness or no sadness. People like Jacob Rees-Mogg. But it's really about being ourselves. And if you is to be demotivated one day, if you is to be motivated the other day, that's who you are. And you find your place because of it. So here's the thing for you: in the corporate world, when I was working in the corporate world, I was sacked from every job I've ever done. So every job I've ever had, I've actually been sacked from every job I've ever done. So and the reason why is that I was unmanageable. I couldn't fill out my expense forms. I wouldn't tell people where I was going. I couldn't be bothered to fill out the diary. So I got into this corporate world after, I studied, and I was no good at it. And it conspired to make me feel bad. And I used to, really feel bad about myself. Why can't I hold down a job? Why can't I, be successful in a career? And so I went through this long phase of, unhappiness and, literally sort of doing nothing. And I thought, what do I enjoy? And I thought I actually enjoy psychology. That's what I enjoy. I don't enjoy the corporate world. I enjoy psychology. So I decided to sort of, follow my passion more than my pension, and just found something that I enjoy doing. And I thought I'll just do it, and I'll do it how I want to do it. And what I came to realize, and unfortunately it was a bit late, but I did realize it eventually, and thankfully I did realize it, that it wasn't me. It was the world in which I was trying to fit in, which was the issue. And I was thinking it was me that wasn't working. It was just, I was a square peg in a round hole. That wasn't for me. So when I moved myself out of there and become successful in another area, which wasn't the world I was in, I actually started to realize that, the issue was, with that environment. And I've now found an environment where I can flourish by being me. And in a way, I sometimes think that from a business perspective, I was talking to a business, about this, I would be advising them that, it's not just about training the people. It might be about fixing the environment. When you've got to find people in your company who, you think they're deficient of skill sets, they might not be. It's actually not them, it's you. It's the culture that's not allowing them to be innovative. It's the culture that's not allowing them to passionately iterate your processes, whatever it might be. So, I think let's try and fix the environment more so than try and train the people. It might be about, maybe some of the people who are, engaging with this. And if you're unhappy in the workplace, it might not be because you need to learn new skills. It might be because you need a new workplace and you don't need to learn those skills. And so it's a matter of sort of finding a place where, we can be ourselves, and people like us for it.
Wow. That's so profound. I just want to dig into that.
Very kind.
Right. It is very, very profound. I'm really enjoying this conversation. In fact, Jamil, I feel so frustrated because I feel like I say this every few episodes, but it's just the truth. I genuinely, this has been one of my favorite conversations that I've had on Freshly Grounded, so I really, really appreciate your time. Before we close off, let's have that discussion then about parenting. I'm very excited about it. Now, you did mention on your podcast with Stephen that you found that you can't use psychology and psychology hacks and techniques on children. So I don't know how long of a discussion this can be, but in what ways can you help your children from an early age have a high performance mindset? There you go. I'll leave it at that.
So now you're keen for your children to go on to a great career so you can retire young, aren't you?
Oh, so, such a dad.
I'm heading with this. You know, I think a couple of things. Praise the activity, not the outcome. That's really important. I'll give you two things on this. So praise the activity, not the outcome. So when your child does a great picture, don't say that's a great picture. Say you've tried really hard, or this is amazing. You've been incredibly creative. So what you're doing is you're praising the activity and the character more so than the outcome. It's also a good tip for leaders. Leaders are always saying, "Oh, well done, team! You've achieved that this quarter." Or, "Well done, team! You know, look which contract we've won." But instead of saying that, what we should say is that we've won this contract, and it's because these two teams came together and their problem solving was incredible. This is how they did it. Once we start to celebrate the activity, we can be more sustainably successful. We're realizing more about ourselves. If you celebrate the outcome, it's binary. You either win or you lose, or you're successful or not. It's over. You're on to the next thing. So praise the activity. Second thing is be careful of comparisons. So do you know what happens is that when you have a baby, you celebrate everything. At first smile, first poo, first wave, just celebrate. It's all amazing. And then the baby goes into a child and we become critical. We say, why can't she be any good at mathematics? Why isn't he any good at cricket? And we talk like that. But it's the same with our businesses, by the way. When people start a new business up, they celebrate the first invoice going out. They've over-serviced, they're making a loss, but we celebrate it. And we've got a company name. It's amazing. And then the company becomes successful and they start getting really critical about it. Because the baby turns into a child and we get critical. We say, this company it's great, but we are not doing this. We should have done that by now. And so why aren't we further with? So I think that, let's start to celebrate the individual and not look at comparatives. So one of the problems we make with success in general, so this isn't just for children, it's us too, is that we always look at success as a comparison. So we will compare ourselves to our next door neighbour, someone we went to school with, someone we're in the workplace with, someone else in the sales team, someone else in the football team. But success is about the continued accomplishment of goals which are personal to the individual. So it's how much we fulfill our own potential. Be careful at sports day. It's not about, where they come in comparison to someone else. It's not about someone else's child. It's about the potential of your own. So two things, praise activity and don't look at comparisons. Always make sure that you're understanding the individual. And I think that, once we do that, I guess what we're doing, because your original question, Faisal, was about, how do we create that mindset in the child? And I think that, the way in which we do it, is by allowing them better self-awareness. And what those two things do is allow them better self-awareness. And so, once they have that sort of self-awareness, maybe they'll choose to use the skills that they've got in a different way to which they may have done.
Wow. Every piece of information that or advice that you've given today is just, I've soaked it in like a sponge. It's just been so amazing to hear. And every single thing that you've mentioned has been so practical, such practical steps. I feel like I need to speak to somebody right now and just praise praise the reason that an outcome has happened. It's been really enjoyable, Jamil. I thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing. Hopefully, I can have you on one day in the future in person. It'd be lovely to have you here and speak to you, face to face. But I know how much of a busy man you have. I know it's been tough to get this episode, but I am really grateful that you gave us your time. So thank you so much for that, Jamil.
Thank you so much, Faye. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. I'll be delighted to come and see you sometime. I'm not doing the babysitting, but I will come and see you and have a chat.
Oh, that's amazing! And in that case, I if you could just at least allow me to take you out for a coffee or a dinner, that would be more than enough.
That would be great.
Thank you so much, Jamil. In fact, if you just wait there, I'll end the podcast and then I'll give you another goodbye after.
No problem.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This has been episode 239, I think, of Freshly Grounded, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.